have a government that is controlling itself? No. So that is, in essence, what our biggest problem is today. There also is a big difference in what people think in politically correct language when it comes to talking about a creator or talking about the fact that this is a constitutional republic founded on Judeo-Christian principles. That is what all of Western civilization is. Not just the United States of America, but all of Western civilization. And yet we think that we're not supposed to talk about these things anymore. Folks, this is something that is undermining the very fabric of our society, and we cannot fall for that, or will fall for anything. Look at the contrast between our constitutional republic based upon the truths of God and the Bible versus what Alexis de Tocqueville described about Mohammedanism, which is Islam. He said, Muhammad professed to derive from heaven. And he has inserted in the Quran not only a body of religious doctrines, but political maxims, civil and criminal laws, and theories of science. And then he contrasts it with the gospel of Jesus Christ. He says, on the contrary, only speaks of the general relations of men to God and to each other, beyond which it inculcates and imposes no point of faith. We in the United States of America are accustomed to the acknowledgement of God, but we are not in any way interested in a theocracy. That is what Islam is a theocracy. We're not interested in that. So please understand this, and if someone wants to start chattering at you about freedom of religion, yeah, people can worship as they please. But that form of religion doesn't mean that we need to start implementing Sharia law in our babies. Folks, it's happening in our own communities. So we've got to wake up to this. We're not interested in a theocracy. This is a Judeo-Christian society which enables anyone to worship as they wish, but we are not interested in a theocracy. There are views of civil society between conservatives and modern liberals. Mark Levins calls modern liberals statists, and the contrast is this: conservatives reject moral relativism. We believe in that private property and liberty are inseparable. We respect the rule of law that is just, known, and predictable, and apply equally, albeit imperfectly, because we are imperfect as human beings. The liberal, or the statist, on the other hand, believes in the supremacy of the state, which will ultimately lead to soft tyranny. There is also a difference between an individual and a statist. Individuals are free to go their own way, but we understand that our first duty is to our family, our community, and our faith. The statist, on the other hand, believes that man must become reliant upon and fearful of the state. His first duty is to the state, and once the individual is dispirited, he can be molded by the state. Anyone seen what Barack Hussein and what Obama wants to do with our public education system? Yeah. You know, Governor Perry rejected what they call race to the top money because, oh yeah, it also includes a national curriculum and a national test. Oh, and by the way, those aren't written yet, so we don't know what they look like, and we can't really tell you what the blanks are going to be there. Folks, this man is a statist, he is a Marxist, and I'm going to go so far as to say he is the most self-proclaimed communist that has been ever in the United States. Saul Alinsky, as we will see later, was a Marxist communist, and that is who not only Barack Hussein Obama, but also Hillary Clinton wrote their college papers about. There is also a difference between change and reform. When so many Americans were hearing about change and hope, they thought that they could define change as what they understood it to mean. But what you and I mean as change is the definition of reform here. Reform directly addresses a grievance with a remedy. That's what people thought. They thought they had a grievance and they thought that they would address it with a remedy. Instead, when he used the word change, he meant radically change. Its desired impact cannot be known beforehand. Change produces unpredictable consequences, threatening ordered liberty with chaos and ultimately despotism. So, I hope you understand there is a stark contrast between change and reform. Reform is what Republicans have tried to do in about 40 bills that they have submitted to reform health care. Is our health care system perfect? No. Does it need reform? Yes. But we don't want to throw it all out in this definition of change and end up with a chaotic system, which is exactly what I would call anything that includes death penalties. That's chaos. Also, he talked a lot about equality and inequality. And class warfare, I remember being peaked during the time of the Clinton administration, the 8 years of Clinton. He was very good at pitting one American against another. But no one was as good as what this guy is that's in the White House now. Equality and inequality are both engines of liberty. Let's look at what they mean. Equality is a natural right of individuals to live freely under self-government, to acquire and retain property through his own labor, and to be treated impartially before just law. That is equality. Inequality is the natural state of man in the sense that each individual is born unique. I have 5 grandchildren. I'm insulted even when a shoe salesman told me this last weekend, oh, they all 5 look alike. No, they don't. They're all individuals. And they all have their own unique personalities. Every mom and dad knows that. Every grandparent knows that. They're awesome. But they're unequal in a very good way, which is an engine of liberty, equality and inequality. This is what Barack Hussein Obama means. Equal outcomes do not equal equal opportunities. You and I, as free marketers, believe in equal opportunities. We want our children and grandchildren, we want ourselves to be offered every opportunity to be all we can be. But Barack Hussein Obama and the statists want a very low bar set. Anyone ever studied the outcome-based education issue a few years ago? Outcome-based education had a real glitch in its get along. And that was that it set a very low bar so that every child could reach that low bar. Those who reached the low bar first had to turn around and help those behind them. So typically, a child who reaches that bar first then would go beyond that to excel and become all he could be. But in outcome-based education, you couldn't go beyond the low bar. You turned around and you helped those who couldn't quite get to that bar. So you're dumbing down the entire class by doing that. Get it? That's what Barack Hussein Obama wants. And in order to produce those kind of equal outcomes, it means an ever-growing state power. It violates the individual's property rights. It uses persuasion, deception, and coercion to obtain perfection and what they call utopia. And only if the individual surrenders to the all-powerful state can he become perfect. How convoluted is that? But that is Marxist thought. That is Saul Alinsky. This is not the first time we as Americans have faced these kind of thinking, convoluted thinking. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt was first elected, he had a lot of freedom ideas that he presented to the American people, and the American people elected him because of those things. But the longer he was in office, in one paragraph in one of his speeches, I pulled this many rights in just one paragraph. A right to a job. Anyone think that we have a right to a job? No. A right to a minimum wage. Who's hurt every time they raise the minimum wage? Those who make minimum wage, who are usually college students, high school students, the elderly. And then the businessman who has to still live within his own means has got to cut employees. And so who is hurt? Those people at the bottom rung of the ladder.